is the morn without your hand to comfort me.
What I do with my music is I take old hymn lyrics, most of them are 200, 300 years old, and write songs based on those lyrics. So I'm writing new music. Sometimes I'm changing a few things around, but I'm basically taking a lot of these hymns that many of which are kind of obscure and have fallen out of use, and sort of bringing them back in a different way. They kind of give a different perspective than a lot of songs now, just because they are kind of from a different time, from different culture. They don't have some of our cultural blind spots, so it's kind of interesting to kind of step outside of your immediate time and see what somebody else has said. And these hymns are just they're just beautiful. They're so well written. These lyrics are really profound in the way they talk about God, the way they talk about sin, the way they talk about humanity, and they have a sense that, you know, and it's the same with a lot of great songs, but these hymns tend to be deeply personal, but also universally applicable, where anybody can really kind of relate to them. But they feel very personal, that they were written from out of deep longing and deep pain and deep life experience of these writers. The new album is called Watch the Rising Day, and it really is a thematic album. It's sort of a concept album, and I didn't set out to make it that way, but as we were recording it, I noticed the theme that was emerging, and that theme is it's an album about living in the tension of knowing that Christ has come, He's died for our sins, He's risen again, and that one day He's going to return and set all things right, while at the same time really suffering and grieving and living in a world that's really very, very broken by sin, and with broken relationships and illness and you know, all these things that constantly thwart our lives. And so that the hymns really explore that tension. Some churches these days have stopped using hymns. I mean, there's, in certain places of the country, you know, there's an entire generation that's never really heard hymns at all. And a lot of times that's because maybe they're, you know, the text is married to a certain kind of music that church isn't doing anymore, and so because they're not using that, you know, an organ or whatever, they stop doing hymns. And so yeah, a lot of times hymns have fallen by the wayside, and so it's good to be able to kind of give people an option, you know, if they're using, you know, contemporary instruments, to be able to use these hymns and really discover or rediscover what they're about. Some of my favorite hymns, I've got one called You Are the Light, which is a Charles Wesley text, who is arguably, most days, he's my favorite hymn writer, that really talks about the darkness of this world, and even the darkness in our own hearts, but how Jesus is the true and the only light, who can come and really rescue us and redeem us, and I love that one. There's another one called, it's actually the title track of the CD, it's called Watch the Rising Day. The text was written by William Cooper, who was an amazing hymn writer and poet. Had a lot of struggles. He struggled with mental illness throughout the course of his life, had a very difficult life in that sense. That's ultimately a battle that he lost. He spent the last few years of his life basically insane. He couldn't think rationally, and so his hymns have a lot of just really a lot of tension in them, and wanting to be redeemed and wanting to not have those struggles anymore. And really they're a cry to God that I think anybody can relate to, even if they haven't, you know, struggled with mental illness per se. I think worship music should display Christ in such a way that the worshiper, the person, realizes that he is more worthy of their worship than whatever they're worshiping. I think that we're all worshiping something at all times. And that's, the Bible describes that as idolatry, which is not, for most of us, it's not worshiping little statues. It's taking some sort of good gift from God, and instead of worshiping the giver of the gift, worshiping the gift itself as God. And I think worship music and just a worship service at church, the entire point of it should be to display Christ, to really preach Christ and Him crucified, so that we can see that He is the one who is worthy of worship.